Morbidly beautiful radio. We horror.
Did you hear the one about the man who can't be destroyed? He was buried alive.
What more can you do to a human being? This is inhuman. He's gotta be trapped, just under the weight of that much dirt.
He was set on fire.
What the hell is going on? Come on! Move down! The cat's get on fire!
They carried him away. But he keeps coming back. Don't be afraid. Be terrified. As I lay me down to sleep, I pray my soul is mine to keep. My soul and never step outside this bed, never into all the evil. Now back from the dead.
Are you scared?
Be here.
And welcome to another episode of the Calling Hours Horror Podcast on Morbidly Beautiful Radio, which is also nationally and internationally syndicated on Mile High Radio Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now, your host, the head undertaker, the dead man Michael Jones of MorbidlyBeautiful.com, Coughing Cuties Magazine, and Digital Dead Magazine.
That's right. Thank you, Dead Girl 13, for such a wonderful intro. Yes, it is I, your head undertaker, the dead man Michael Jones, of course, of MorbidlyBeautiful.com, Coughing Cuties Magazine, and Digital Dead Magazine. How's everyone doing this evening? Hopefully we have gotten past all of the technical difficulties we've been having as of late. YouTube, as we know, likes to screw with people who are in the horror industry and do horror-themed shows, and apparently the dead man became the victim over the last couple of weeks. But as you can see, once again, I'm back. So to hell with that, let's do what we came here to do. Tonight, as our special guest this evening, we will be having podcaster JK of Horror Happens Radio on. Now, Jay's a great guy. He had me on a show about a month or so ago. We talked about what we thought were some of my favorite horror films over the past year. For those of you, of course, not familiar with JK, again, if you've never listened to Horror Happens Radio, you really need to go and check that out. But he's so much more than a podcaster. He's also a journalist for Horrorhound, Tom Holland's Terror Time, Icons of Fright, HorrorNews.net, the Horror News Network, the FDTC Network, The Bloodshed, Diabolique, as well as a host of others. He is also a judge for numerous film festivals and does panel hosting and moderating. We will be talking about podcasting and the horror genre as a whole, including all of the recent sex scandals rocking the industry. And of course, I can't help it with him being a fellow wrestling fan. I think we do get a little bit of wrestling in as well. Make sure to tune into that starting at about 8:30 this evening. In our Digital Dismemberment Spotlights this evening, we will be covering Fright Tek Pictures' Origin Releasing's release of Scarred, as well as Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Scanners 2, The New Order, and Scanners 3, The Takeover. And that is a Blu-ray and DVD combo pack. It kind of made sense to review the two films together, especially when sets are a two-set like that. We will also be hearing from three bands in our Metal Massacre Spotlight this evening. So let's get down to our first one. The name of the band is Vital Remains. The CD is Icons of Evil. And the song is Hammer Down the Nails. Welcome back. You just heard the band Vital Remains. The CD was Icons of Evil, and the song was Hammer Down the Nails. Vital Remains is an American death metal band from Providence, Rhode Island, formed in 1988. If you want to find out more about this band, pick up their CDs, merchandise, and find out where they're touring, make sure to head on over to www.facebook.com/vital.remains.official/. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some digital dismemberment. And in our first digital dismemberment spotlight this evening, we are covering Scanners 2, The New Order, and Scanners 3, the Takeover Blu-ray and DVD combo pack from Scream Factory. First of course, we're going to be talking about Scanners 2, The New Order. Now, this film is directed by Christian Duguay, produced by Tom Barry, Pierre David, Renee Malo, and Renaud Pare. Special effects were handled by Ryle Cosgrove, Steve Frakes, Chris Gilmore, and Ralph Miller III. The cast includes David Hewlett, Deborah Raffine, Ivan Ponton, Isabel Mahias, Tom Butler, Raul Trujillo, Vlasta Varana, Murray Westgate, Doris Petrie, Dorothy Berryman, Michael Rudder, David Francis, and Tom Harvey. Of course, it was released by Shout Scream Factory in 2013. Now, the premise of the film is a breed of humans with dangerously powerful telepathic abilities, also known as the Scanners, are being recruited by a corrupt police commander, John Forrester, in his crusade to take over the city. Forrester first enlists the help of an evil scientist, Dr. Morse, who wants to conduct mind control experiments on the Scanners with a new drug. When the side effects render the Scanners incapable, Forrester then finds David Kellum, a rational scanner who, unaware of his own powers, agrees to help him. Will Kellum discover Forrester's real motive and prevent the new order from being established? Now, sequels can be a tricky thing, and when you're trying to follow up David Cronenberg's sci-fi horror classic Scanners, the bar is set even higher. 10 years later, we get a film that not only expands upon Cronenberg's original concept and continues to bring the exploding heads, but it also finds a way to keep you at arm's length so that you can't fully embrace the characters like you could with the first film. Now, that is not to say that the film is unenjoyable or unwatchable, as director Christian Duguay does bring new aspects to the scanner's abilities to control people and to almost will selective emotional states in individuals. The acting in and of itself is not bad, and the characters hit the majority of their marks. The story does connect to the original in a way that makes sense, and the camera work is steady, and the sound and dialogue are more than sufficient. But while writer B.J. Nelson is able to bring all of this into his script, he is never able to infuse the characters with the same emotional content or internal conflict and anguish that Cronenberg did in the original. Still more than worth watching as a double feature or standalone, it is a fun ride with some unique concepts that should be checked out for its own merit. And of course, there are spoilers from here on out. Now, we hear voices in whispered tones and pull back to see Drax screaming at the sky. He stumbles down an alley to an arcade, wandering through the crowd and looking around until he stops in front of a shooter video game. He starts playing by hand, but as he becomes more excited, he begins using the game with his scanner powers while everyone else looks on in terror. He starts to lose control and lashes out at the people and games around him, completely destroying the arcade. He is later captured by a team headed by Dr. Morse and Commander John Forrester and brought back to a research facility with other scanners so that he can take a drug that will help to contain his powers and allow the crooked Forrester and Morse to use them to create a new order to take out other criminals in the city. We see other scanners in the facility that look old and strung out on experimental drugs that are created by Morse to help contain their powers. As a vet student, David Kellum has been starting to get really bad migraines again that remind him of his childhood and trying to deal with his powers. He uses them at work to heal a dying puppy, which he later gives to his classmate and love interest, Alice. Forrester sends two scanners into a meeting with an attorney that is a setup, and they kill the dirty attorney much to Forrester's delight. Looking like a hero on the news, he begins to speak about his new order as a way of controlling crime and eliminating the moral decay of the city. This angers the chief and the mayor, so Forrester begins to plot a way to remove them before his plans can be discovered. Morse informs Forrester that more scanners in the facility are dying, and they agree that they need a scanner with a fresh mind. We flash back to David and Alice heading to the corner market for milk for dinner, and they are accosted in the store by a pair of robbers. After killing the clerks and the owner of the store, they turn their violence towards Alice. David stops them with his scanner powers. He takes an injured Alice to the hospital, unaware what he did was caught on tape, and Forrester now wants him for his new order. Forrester catches up with David and assures him that he did nothing wrong. He convinces David to help the police locate and capture a man that was spiking milk for schools, and David begins to think what he is doing is right. Forrester sends Drac to the chief's house, and Drac gets him to kill himself. The next day, Forrester takes David to a press conference that the mayor is having and pushes David to use his powers to get the mayor to announce him as the new chief of police. He does, but begins to feel guilty about everything. David heads to the research facility to confront Morse and Forrester, but after scanning Forrester, he finds out the horrible truth about what is going on. David escapes to his parents' house to find out what else has been hidden from him, but shortly after finding out he was adopted and has a sister, his family is murdered by Forrester's men. David heads out to find his sister as he is declared an escaped mental patient by Forrester. His sister is a scanner as well, and together they try to find a way to help other scanners in the facility and to put a stop to the work of Morse and the twisted designs of Forrester. Can they stop him and his new order? You're going to have to watch to find out. Now, I give this particular movie a 3 out of 5 stars. There were no special features for this particular film. Now, on to Scanners 3, The Takeover. Again, directed by Christian Duguay. Produced by Pierre David, Irene Litinsky, Renee Malo, and Renaud Perret. Special effects were handled by Louis Craig and Mario Dumont. The cast includes Liliana Komorowska, Valerie Velos, Steve Parrish, Colin Fox, Daniel Pilon, Peter Wright, Sith Saki, Harry Hill, Claire Salucci, Michael Copeman, Chip Chippewa, Jean Frenet, Sylvain Beauchamps, and Gaston Perrault. This film, of course, was released by Shout Scream Factory in 2013. Now, the premise of this one is a young scanner with extraordinary telepathic powers transforms into a lethal killing machine after taking one of her father's experimental drugs. After taking over his pharmaceutical company, the deranged scanner runs amok on a killing spree and takes over a television company in her quest for world domination. As her thirst for more power grows strongly, only one man, her scanner brother, might have the power to stop her. Now, for everything that was right with Scanners 2, the exact opposite happened with Scanners 3. The director returns for this film, and while there are flashes of what he did in Part 2, the script goes way over the top on comedic elements and expanding a scanner's power to be transmitted via TV and satellite broadcast, and it just reeked of desperation. It is hard to fault the actors for their portrayals of their characters, but the campy performances and dreadful comedy bits really hurt the chances of anyone taking this film with any seriousness. There are some parts of the film that are not that horrible, and the effects work is just a whisker below Part 2, so you will still get to see your exploded heads and body parts. The romantic subplot with a thinly veiled incest theme seems to be written in as an afterthought, but the new drug and how the scanners react to it makes you wish they had stayed a bit more on the scientific side of the storytelling. While not the worst film on the shelf, it would not be the first one to be watched on a rainy day. However, if you are a completist and love the Scanner series and wish to lament about what could have been, then this is a must for you. And spoilers here for this film. It is Christmas time, and Helena and Alex Monet show up at Joyce's party. Alex is a scanner, and at the urging of his friend, shows off his powers but is distracted and accidentally kills his best friend. Grief-stricken, he is found not guilty in court, but not able to deal with what happened. He searched the world for a way to control his powers. 2 years later, his sister Helena is having intense headaches due to her being a scanner as well. Their father, Dr. Elton Monet, has created a new version of EPH that can be worn like a nicotine patch to help scanners with their pain and powers, but the drug has not yet been tested on anyone. Helena wants to be the first to try it, but her father resists and gets her to take her regular medication. After a bad nightmare, Helena takes one of the patches and notices an immediate difference in the pain she feels, but the side effects begin to take over and she begins to murder those that she feels were unjust to her and other scanners, including her father's partner, Dr. Bonham, who examined her condition as a child. She murders the rest of the staff and gives patches to the other patients, allowing them to run the clinic under her control. David continues to try and master his powers while staying at a temple in Thailand, all while his sister continues to take the patch and become more and more sinister. Her father is aghast to discover that she has been taking the patch and demand that she remove it. When she asks him for more, he refuses, and she slowly drowns him in the hot tub, making it seem like an accidental death. The company attorney flies to Thailand to find Alex to tell him about what happened to his father and to alert him as to his sister's odd behavior. Little do they know, Helena has sent another scanner to Thailand, and he makes a group beat the attorney to death, and then they turn on Alex. He manages to take down the crowd and makes the other scanner crash into some barrels and explode. Back in the States, Helena makes her move and convinces the board that her brother is dead and she is the sole heir to the company. She lays out her plans for domination in the world market, all while beginning to set her plans for world domination into motion behind the scenes. Shaken but determined after a meditation with one of the priests at the temple, Alex heads back to the States to find out what is going on. Helena tries to mass-produce the new drug, but there is a missing ingredient in the formula. She enlists the help of Joyce to crack the formula while she hires a new personal assistant to test her powers on and find out that she can transmit her powers through a video source via camera. After figuring this out, she pulls a hostile takeover on a former business associate by taking away his television stations and forcing him to commit suicide by jumping into an empty pool head first. Alex arrives back in the States and heads to the family home where he finds the videotape that Helena made the night before in the VCR. After playing it and almost falling under the hypnotic command, he heads to the company to confront her and find out what is going on. After convincing him she is okay and sending him to find Joyce at Dr. Bowman's clinic, he is attacked by other scanners and almost had his eyes fried out by a laser. After a daring escape and realizing that his sister set him up, Alex decides he has to stop his sister before she can put her plans for world domination into effect. Can Alex stop her before the broadcast hits the airwaves, or will Helena achieve world domination with the other scanners in her control? You're going to have to watch to find out. Now, again, while there are no special features for this film either, I would like to point out that the running time of one of the movies, the back of the box states that the running time for Scanners 3 is 95 minutes. However, the film runs 97 minutes and 35 seconds before the credits roll, and after the credits roll has a running time of 99 minutes and 38 seconds. A previous listing of the film on IMDb actually lists the running time as 101 minutes. So there are questions as to whether this is a more cut version, uncut version. It's hard to say at this point. It's not an easy movie to actually track down to come out with those specifications. Now, this is a 2-disc set in an NTSC format. It is a color film with R rating, and that is both films. The film is a 1080p high-definition widescreen, 178:1. Now, Screen Factory once again brings us a couple of films that never got released on DVD in the US and helps collectors fill in a hole in their collection that they may not have been able to do so otherwise. Having previously been released on VHS by 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment and Media Home Entertainment in the US, in Canada by Malo Film Home Video, and in the Scanners Trilogy DVD box set available only in Europe by Stars Home Entertainment, being able to track down copies of these for comparison was pretty much out of the question. I will say that the films once again have their incredible picture and sound transfers that Screen Factory have supplied for all of their other releases. Another one of the Blu-rays that is part of their lower price point line, this 2-disc set is the Blu-ray editions on one disc and standard definition on the other. As I mentioned before, there are no special features, but understanding how these films are not widely received, it's not surprising that there are none. Considering that you are getting 2 movies converted to Blu-ray that otherwise might not have seen the light of day, this is still a passable disc and a must for any fan of the series. Screen Factory continues to show why it is the standard bearer for Blu-ray sci-fi horror releases with these 2 films for their first North American release. Now, Scanners 3, I gave a 2 out of 5. The Blu-ray DVD ratings, I gave a 6.5 out of 10. So make sure to head on over to Shout Screen Factory if the Scanners films are something that you want to help round out your collection. Now, coming up in just a few moments, we're going to go into our feature interview with podcaster JK of Horror Happens Radio. But before that, we're going to go into our second Metal Massacre Spotlight. The name of the band is Necrogobblecon. The CD is Welcome to Bonkers. And the song is Dressed as Goblins.
And welcome back. You just heard the band Necrogoblicon. The CD was Welcome to Bonkers, and the song was Dressed as Goblins. Necrogoblicon is an American melodic death metal band based in Los Angeles, California. The group was formed in 2006. If you want to find out more about this band, how to pick up their CDs, where they're touring, and merchandise, head on over to www.facebook.com/Necrogoblicon. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our feature interview.
And you will face the sea of darkness, and all therein that may be explored.
And welcome to our feature interview this evening. And tonight, I feel really honored in having this gentleman on the podcast. Now, this was a guy who was nice enough to have me on his show not that long ago, and that show would be the Horror Happens radio show. And this guy, you know, I used to think that I did a lot of stuff in the industry. This guy is a contributing writer, interviewer, and reviewer at Tom Holland's Terror Time. He's a film judge at more festivals than I can even begin to mention, and just an all-around great conversationalist. And of course, I'm talking about JK. Jay, welcome to the show, man.
Well, thank you for having me on, Michael. I appreciate it very much, and just very lucky and very blessed to be able to do all these things and have people have me be a part of this. It's a lot of hard work, but with that being said, if it wasn't for people wanting to give me a chance and accepting me for what I'm able to offer, I mean, I'd be just like everyone else. In fact, I might not even be in the industry, and it includes you, my friend, for having me on tonight. So I appreciate it.
Oh, it's no problem at all. And, you know, let's just start at the beginning, man. I mean, how did you get involved with all of this? How did you become so ingrained in the industry?
Well, I don't know. I appreciate the high compliments that you paid me, my friend. I don't know how high up in the industry I am. I mean, I go out there and I do the meat work, as I like to say. I do a lot of hard work. I put myself on the line. Basically every dollar just about comes out of my pocket for me to travel to these film festivals and conventions and do the show every week and be able to, have those resources at my hands. But I started off just like everyone else. I was a fan, and it wasn't up until about 6 years ago when I really became ingrained in the aspect of horror. The fact that before that, I had a life. I had a job that I enjoyed very much. I was married, and then I got divorced. And, it was that time after I got divorced and was trying to move on with my life that I kind of fell more into horror, because I was trying to figure out where I was going. And at that time, a few things happened. One, I went ahead and went to Horrorhound weekend, and a friend of mine who, I've come to respect as a mentor, Dr. A.C. Aaron Christensen, started hosting panels there. And he was a writer for Horrorhound. He covered film festivals. And I looked at him and I went, my God, this is what I wanted to do. And, I was lucky enough to talk to him and get to know him. And, other people at Horrorhound, including Aaron Curlow and Nathan Heineman, gave me an opportunity, and Jeremy Sheldon. And over the years, I became involved with them. But, that was one aspect of it. But the other aspect was that I went ahead and when, all these video stores were liquidating, I really faced my fears and got really ingrained in horror. I watched Asian horror, I watched foreign horror, I watched all kinds of classic stuff because they were liquidating the stores. And those stores gave me a library, which I have today, most of it I still have today, years later, that I watch, and I've watched again and again, and I really embraced what horror was, and how it's more than just a stereotype, more than just a cookie cutter. It is, these amazing people who are underneath it all, who are creating these stories and these fears, and they're bringing their visions to life, and some people may love it, some people don't, and you respect those opinions and what people believe, but it then led me to the radio show because for a decade, 10 years almost, I did swing, big band, jazz, jump blues, and rockabilly radio. And
nice.
After a decade, if not more, there was no audience for it. So I decided to walk away. And 6 months in, my fiance, the Ghost, her and I started to talk, and I said I wanted to stay in radio and I wanted to do something else. And I ended up coming up with the format of what I do with the Horror Happens radio show and all the conversations and, some entering our sixth year actually in just a couple of weeks, as well as over almost 1,300 first-time guests and conversations. And, 260 some odd episodes later, we're still doing it. And, we love doing it, and it's changed and it's evolved and it's mutated. And now we continue on with writing and everything else. So it's been a long and bumpy journey, to say the least, Michael.
I mean, that's absolutely stunning when you mention that stat. I'm looking at the Horror Happens radio website as we speak, and 1,243 first-time guests and 256 episodes. That's absolutely stunning. And a lot of times I get the question as a podcaster from people, what makes you tick? What makes you decide on a topic? And I want to ask you the same thing. When you decide to do a show and focus on a topic, what hooks you? What draws you in? What raises your blood and goes, man, I got to get on the show and talk about that?
You know what? For me, it's the simple thing of not doing what everyone else is doing. If you look at podcast radio shows and such, quality and quantity, I believe that no one can top what I do. There's plenty of people who are way more smarter than me, way more knowledgeable than me, may know every single thing in and out of the encyclopedia of horror. But, some of them run incredible podcasts and radio programs. Some of them don't know how to hold a conversation, and that's not an insult. That's just a lot of practice on my end over years of debating and years of working with different people, just trying to get to the bottom of things and, trying to find things that people aren't talking about or people that are not getting the opportunity to talk about the things they do because, there's plenty of shows out there will go strictly with legends or plenty that'll do the hot button topics or plenty that'll do the biggest things. Well, if you look at down the roster of guests, the numbers that you brought up, numbers that I brought up, most of these people, most of these creators, most of these filmmakers, actors, writers, authors, journalists go down the line of the different dark corners that we see with the genre. And most of them will be people that have first-time interviews on the program. Most will be ones that have never really had a chance to fulfill their story. And, Michael, you talk about the impressive numbers on there, and I agree, they are impressive. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but my conversations average between 30 to 40 minutes per conversation.
Right.
I don't sit back and give a 10-minute soundbite. I want to know what you're doing. I care about what you're doing, and I want you to be a part of it. And the funny thing is, Michael, starting out in the beginning of the radio program, now going on the sixth season, it was just trying to find people to be there and finding, the things I found interesting. Now it's evolved to 4 to 6 weeks of Women in Horror in February every year, where we just finished our 5th year of that. It's, doing our Trek to 100 genre film festivals that we're going to cover on the program in 2018. It's doing 2 months of extreme and underground cinema that we did 2 or 3 years ago. It's just the fact of finding things that I feel are interesting, and I hope that the listeners will too, because if you do everything like everyone else, then just like everyone else in Horror Happens Radio and myself, we try and be different and, try and show respect and give opportunity to people who might not get it.
And I get that because I try to do the same thing. But one of the things that really fascinated me and still fascinates me about your show is the length. Guests ask me all the time, man, how do you manage to do a 2-hour podcast every week? And in the back of my mind, I laugh because of the length of some of yours. And I wonder, damn it, man, how in the hell does he do it? Because I live, breathe, sleep, eat horror every day. And I just couldn't imagine doing podcasts with the frequency and the length that you do them. I mean, how do you balance that out?
I'm insane. No, I say, well, kind of with Jeff, but it's, for me, I was so used to doing a long radio program with the swing, big band, rockabilly and such for years. And when I switched over, at first it was once a month that I did horror radio. Then it became twice a month, and then it went fully. Starting with 2013, it went fully every single week where I had switched over. But I had that time slot available through Homegrown Radio. They really gave me my first break at doing this. And I had a 5-hour program I was able to parlay into doing that. And, for me, if you listen to my shows, I'll be the first one to admit that, for general talk and news and podcast format, I'm not the best at all at what I do with it. I take pride in the conversations I do, and I try and build the show, those pillars around those conversations. So when I sit back and I realize, I don't look at it as, I have 5 hours. Like I've had 5-hour shows, Michael, pretty much for 4 years, maybe a little bit longer. Every week was a 5-hour show. Jeez. Minus, unforeseen emergencies, or, when we had Sandy that came through here, we lost almost a month of shows and stuff. But, now with the last year, it's 4 hours, but 4 or 5 hours, whatever it might be, I look at it not as an obligation. I look at it as an opportunity to go ahead and hone my craft and to give, again, people opportunities, and to be able to be lucky enough to have that time on a internet radio station and be able to just, enjoy the time. It's a blessing. It's not any obligation whatsoever. In fact, the ghost will tell you that, I myself work, I own 2 businesses now. At one point I didn't. I own 2 businesses now, the radio program, and I work with special needs education. So 6 days a week, I'm doing special needs education. 7 days a week, I'm doing horror. So, there's time to sleep, but it's always working, and I'm just blessed to be able to do it. And who knows when it's going to end, but for right now, I'm having a great time doing it.
It's absolutely stunning, and you should be applauded. And I would like to,
Thank you, sir.
I would like to bring up the fact that from 2014 to 2017, you are a 4-time Rondo Awards nominee for Best Streaming Show.
Thank you,
and that really does speak to your dedication and how you feel about the industry. And, I'm very proud to say that, I consider you a friend, a fellow podcaster, and, I just appreciate what you do for the industry. Now,
well, thank you very much. I just want to say real quick that the Rondo nominations are great, but I thank the people and those in the field who nominate the show and those who vote for it, because if you look at the Rondos, Michael, you'll see that a lot of the shows on there have ginormous audiences that win, and they have every right to win because they're great programming. But those people who go ahead and vote for it and the Rondos and stuff, all the props go out to them, because I could do the radio show forever, and if people weren't listening, people weren't supporting and sharing, there would be nothing. So I thank them for that honor of being a 4-time Rondo nominee.
Definitely. And like I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I voted for you a couple times myself. So
Thank you, sir.
now, one of the other things that I found fascinating, because, I like to do my research before I have people on my show. And I did my research on you before I was even on your show. I see that you studied abnormal psychology. Kind of speak for a moment. Do you feel like that helps you when it comes to covering horror, in particular when you're looking at movies or books or music and things like that?
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing the research and the due diligence, because that's something, with all honesty, I feel that's not done enough in this field. And I'll give you a quick story before I answer your question. I actually had someone who works with PR and horror authors and some filmmakers come up to me one time when I was doing a program and having some guests on. They said, "Here's the Cliff Notes to it. Just have them on, ask questions." And I looked at them and I said, "Do you realize that every guest I have on there, I watch their movie at least twice. I read their book fully before I do it. I take copious notes. Do you realize that everything I do, I spend hours on every week with this show to make sure it's the best it can be, no matter who's listening, no matter who the guest is, small, big, large, legend, new, whatever it might be." I go ahead and do that. And when I heard them say that, about the Cliff Notes, I asked them, "Why was it?" And their response was, because most shows you go on, they don't really care about what they've done. They don't even read through the stuff. So it just crushed me every time someone would say something like that and doesn't take the due diligence like I do, like you do, like some of the great shows out there do. And that's something that's really missed very, very much. But to get back to your question, the aspect of abnormal psychology absolutely plays a huge role, because one thing that working with special needs, working and studying abnormal psychology is the only way you're ever going to understand someone who is different than you is to go ahead and put yourself in their shoes. And what I mean by that is, I'm not sitting here saying I'm Michael Myers or Jay Voorhees or, I'm not sitting there going, "What's in the box?" or anything like that.
Right.
What I am saying is that when you look at a horror film, when you look at a character, every character that you see here has a part of us in. That's why horror is the greatest genre of film and storytelling, because we live vicariously through those characters. We go ahead and we sit back and we want to be those characters. We live those fantasies out. And that's part of our dark psyche. That's part of what we are every day. That's why you see all these terrible headlines in there, because, sometimes people get past that line of reality and they turn into what we see on the screen, and it's terrifying. But the truth of the matter is that we have that in us. And studying abnormal psychology, you have a better understanding of what people how people tick, I should say, and how to get a conversation that people will find interesting, because they look at these kind of things. And, when you listen to my conversations, and you can go on SoundCloud, we have up, I think, 650 now conversations and archived episodes and playlists. But if you listen to the conversations, one of the reasons why they're so long is because of how deep and detailed I get into their work. And part of that is understanding and finding a personal touch to it. And abnormal psychology and working with special needs has helped me to move further in there and better understand horror and be a better broadcaster and conversationalist when it comes to it. So it helps out greatly. And it's something I think, the great hosts, the great researchers, the people who can go ahead and do that new work understand, and that's what separates them from the rest of the pack, that they're able to get, because they understand what is normal and what is abnormal and how it affects them and the people that are listening or watching or reading or whatever it is.
Now, taking all of that into account, you look at the horror genre as a whole, and, you look at over the course of the history of the genre, it is pretty much maligned by what you would call the quote-unquote mainstream.
Right.
You look at the MPAA and how it looks at horror films and how they're rated and how it kind of seems like horror films are singled out a little bit more, but yet they're still so popular with the audiences. Do you feel that there's something in horror movies, no matter
how violent, no matter how gross, sadistic, whatever word you want to use, do you feel like horror films are therapy for a lot of people? Because they wouldn't necessarily go out and do the real thing that they see in films, but it's almost like a release. Do you see it the same way?
Yes, I do. And actually, tell you the truth, the documentary that's going to be coming out, More Blood by Heidi Moore, it's going to be playing the Windy City Horrorama at the end of April. I talked a lot about that, and I think she was kind of surprised by my answers with it, because for me, horror, when those video stores were liquidating, I was in the process of going through that breakup also. Mm-hmm. And I had no cable TV, no nothing. And the aspect of having those movies and watching nonstop horror for the most part really was a coping mechanism for me, really kind of put me in a better place, as twisted as that might sound. It really did. And, I think horror movies are a therapy. I think people go to watch them because of every reason we had just brought up. Everything from living vicariously through them to, finding people that are the same sort of feeling. Conventions are at an all-time high. Days of the Dead, Horrorhound, Monster Mania, Killer Theater, Mad Monster, just go down the line. People are going to these shows. Friday the 13th, this is a great example. I live literally minutes from Camp Noni Bosco or Camp Blood in Blairstown, New Jersey. And to see all the people this past weekend, this past Friday the 13th, come up to Blairstown, which was so nice to see more people than usual up there because it's a beautiful town. And it looks like it hasn't changed, in all the time since we've seen Friday the 13th, the first one, come to be. And when you look at it, these people wanted to be part of something that is part of their upbringing, part of their lineage. Some, for them, it's a family tradition. Some, it's simply just that idea of acceptance. For some, it's people looking at the aspect of all those terrible things, and a certain dark part of them feels like that, they have some sort of kinship to it. So absolutely it's therapy. Absolutely it's coping. And, it reflects in the money, it reflects in the storytelling, it reflects in how people feel and how they connect. And the funny thing is, Michael, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is that horror filmmakers, authors, all of them are the least violent people. You're going to meet. They're the nicest people because they get to, transfer that angst, that emotion, that pain, whatever it might be, onto celluloid, onto digital, onto pages to be able to do it. And they're able to do it by fans sit back and live vicariously through it. And it's just a therapy for them in a lot of instances.
And I was going to ask you about the Friday the 13th celebration. Can you kind of talk about that? There are certain films that definitely have more of an impact in our social media and our culture. And certainly the Friday the 13th films fall into that category. And you mentioned it was nice to see so many people coming to Blairstown to celebrate it. But it's like, kind of talk about, I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I don't have anything here that I would consider historical horror. There's never really been anything made in Raleigh that's like that. What can you kind of talk about? What is it like in everyday life living in an area like that, where something that is so ingrained in the pop culture? Do you see people showing up all the time, every day, just like, oh my God, I'm here, this is where it happened?
No, actually I don't. And that's the funny thing about it, because I want to give credit to Jeanette Laredo, who went to the Blairstown Museum. She went ahead and really kind of put this idea into full focus. Up in the Blairstown Theater, up in that area, they've had screenings of Friday the 13th, but it was, the Blairstown Museum over the last year that's really kind of made this more of a celebration than it was. And rightfully it should be. But for me, going through there in the surrounding areas, you don't see that every day. In fact, there's people who, are kind of tired of it and have to live through it. So I guess it's really how you see. One of the things, Michael, and, I know this might sound a little crazy coming from a horror talk radio show, is horror fans is what they are. They live in a very small world. And I'm a horror fan myself, but they live in a very small world where, certain things mean the most to them. And Friday the 13th means the most to them. But you look at a majority of the the population there, it might be a pop culture symbol, but it doesn't mean the same thing. And, you want to live with the horror-colored glasses. I am all for whatever makes people happy. And then that's the great thing about the United States of America. You have the freedom to be able to do that. But up here, there are people in Blairstown who don't see it that way. In Warren County, who don't see it that way. So, you've got your split and share of it, but it doesn't take away from the fact that it has been an impact on pop culture and society for decades now. And Friday the 13th, probably out of all the horror franchises, has the biggest pop culture impact. Nightmare on Elm Street has probably, arguably, the greatest character of the 1980s with Freddy Krueger. Halloween is transcended because of the holiday, but if you're looking at something that came from nothing, Friday the 13th was that, and it impacts. And no matter whether people are tired of it or people embrace it, it's nice to see the people be here, and it's nice to see the people celebrated, even if it's 2 or 3 times a year. And a lot of it has to do with those fans.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing, and hopefully one of these days I can make it up there for something like that. Because, like I said, I don't have anything like that down here in North Carolina, and it's kind of sad.
Right.
But
well, that's Michael. That's how new horror legends are created. They didn't have that up here until Sean Cunningham and everyone involved with the first film decided that this was the place to film. It could have been Raleigh, North Carolina, once upon a time. You just don't know. So that's why new and original horror is needed, because we need to find, those new icons. We need to find those new creators, those new filmmakers. Great to sit back and say, this work is based off of John Carpenter or Wes Craven or Tom Holland, and they were amazing what they did. But the funny thing is, just about all of them, and I'm not going to sit here because I don't have statistics, but I'll hedge my bets. These guys never went out to make a horror film. They went out to just make a film that ended up getting picked up by horror fans and the horror genre. So remember, just about all horror started in a place where it wasn't horror. So a lot of people forget that, but that's something that Raleigh, North Carolina, maybe they need the next horror franchise. They need the next great horror character, and you will have that, and someone will say that to you.
I guess I need to get cracking on that since I'm here.
Don't we all?
So let's transition into how you got involved with all of these film festivals. Like I said, I could probably take a half hour just to name all of these film festivals that you judge at, that you do panels at, and things like that. Kind of talk about how you became involved with the film festivals and the conventions.
Well, what, for me, over the 5+ years I've been doing this, I started off just here in New Jersey, going to Monster Mania and Chiller Theater and the local ones. And my first one I ventured outside of was Horrorhound in Cincinnati. And, it was a while before I came back there. So as the show developed more, I started doing something that no one really did at all in the field. And it's unfortunately still like that, even though it really needs to change. And I don't know why people don't do it. It could be any number of reasons, but I started bringing festival directors and convention programmers on the radio program. And I made it a point that I would have several on each year. And as each year went on, it started to grow more and more and more. And at that time, when I first started doing the show, Denise Gossett gave me my first opportunity to judge for Shriek Fest. And she was just looking for volunteers. It had nothing to do with the radio program or what I was doing or who I was. But, she gave me an opportunity. And for 3 years, I judged for her until, she went in a different direction with how she was judging. And, I went in a different direction, how I was doing the show. But as I went forward, especially the last couple of years, I really started to venture outside. In fact, 3 years, I started to venture outside the tri-state area. And I started to go to more conventions and film festivals and events, down south. I went to Days of the Dead in Atlanta, and I would go, out to Chicago, and I'd go up to Toronto and Boston and all that stuff. And as I started doing more with the show and, built a reputation of the show, people started to notice, and I had more programmers and festival directors on, and, that's you're in when you're getting to know them and getting that coverage because you're giving them the time to talk about their event, what they're proud of, just like a filmmaker, just like an author, just like, a podcast host or a journalist or an actor, whatever it is. And I started to more and more and more. And then in the last couple of years, I said to myself, I go, I've been to so many conventions, and I love conventions, and I have nothing but respect for all the highs and lows and slings and arrows amazing people do to go ahead and get to do what they have to do. At that time, I said, you know what? Except for a couple of conventions, I see all the same guests at just about all the same conventions. So why not go to the film festivals? And there's so many people I respect in the industry that attend film festivals that are involved at the cutting edge of where, the films for the year are going to be. And the new names in horror and the new people, the new stories that are a part of it. And so I just said, you know what? I'm going to step away from conventions. And I ended up only in the last couple of years, the only one I really go to is Horrorhound now, because Nathan and Journey and Mary and all of them have given me a chance to not only to write for Horrorhound magazine, which I believe I think I'm 10 or 11 issues now, last time I counted, but, they gave me a chance to host panels, and I've hosted. My first one with them was Sons of Anarchy. And that's not horror. Well, that is horror to a certain extent, but it's not traditional horror. And from there, I've hosted small panels, and I've hosted Strangers, and I've hosted Summer School. I've hosted a lot of different panels for them. And they're really the only convention I go to now because of how much I love and respect what they do and the opportunities they give me with it. But then I switched over to all film festivals. And I switched over to film festivals because with film festivals, it's not the same guests every single time to cover. How many more interviews, and no disrespect, but how many more interviews do I have that say, hey, or Bill Mosley, or the same 10 people, and I talk to all of them, and they're amazing at what they do, and they're great stories and conversations, but it doesn't interest me anymore. Going to film festivals and being around all these filmmakers of today and yesterday, everywhere from New York State and Ithaca, out to Chicago, up to Toronto, down to, Atlanta, through North Carolina, all the way out, to Austin, Texas, this year with Colorado and so much more. I love it. You got to California, this area. I love it because I'm seeing all these different films. Every time I go, there's new content to be involved with it. And there's new people to talk to, and there's new stories, and everything is new. And again, it gets back to the point I brought up about the masters. Everyone loves the masters. Well, where's the new masters of horror? Where are the people that you're going to talk about in the next decade, 2 decades, like you do now? They're the ones that are sitting at the film festivals creating these amazing images. People like Aaron Moorhead and Justin Benson, who just did The Endless. People like Ryan Prose, who did Low Life, and Old Dean, who did Wolf Cop. I mean, that's just 3 of hundreds that are out there. All the incredible female filmmakers. Issa Lopez, who did Tigers Are Not Afraid. She just got picked up by Guillermo del Toro to produce her next film or next 2 films. I mean, that's astonishing to do it. And with that being said, opportunities opened up. I started to host Q&As there. I give to Oogs Barber and Andrew Summers gave me a chance to host for the Fantastic not too long ago. And then it turned into judging. And, I volunteer myself whenever I get opportunities. You need to judge someone, I'll be the first one to do it. Now I'm judging in the UK. I'm judging on the Left Coast. I've been judging for Etheria and Axe Wound, and now Women in Horror, all these incredible female-based women in horror film festivals. And, you need balance. You need opportunity. You need to try new things. And between judging and all these tales and stuff, I've gotten these opportunities, and so much has grown out of them now than I could have ever hoped for, and that includes Horrorhound as well. So you just have to sit back and volunteer and put yourself out there, and you put your time in, you build that reputation, you show that you're action and not all talk, and it will come, and it has come, and I'm not only a client, but I'm the president of it also.
Now, you talk about the convention scene, and I've noticed a lot recently, especially over the last 2 years, I'm starting to hear more and more rumblings from people that attend these conventions, and a lot of them complain. I don't know if bitch is the word I want to use, but they kind of talk about sometimes how they feel like the actors, actresses, directors are starting to kind of price themselves out of like these autograph opportunities and things like that. In your opinion, what do you feel about things like that? Do you feel like they're starting to put the cart before the horse when it comes to what some of these people are charging at conventions?
Yeah, I do to a certain extent. It's not cheap to go to a convention anymore. And, it's not necessarily the aspects of, the people who are running it. I mean, it's the aspect of a lot of different entities. Some of it is the convention booking manager. Some of it is the aspect of media and the aspect of the, some of the bigger shows dictating the prices for the smaller shows. I mean, you look at The Walking Dead and, the aspect in certain conventions where, you have to pay to go up and say hello to them, which was insane to do. It's the idea right now that, yes, you can make as much money as you want because that's your right to do it. But it's reaching a point where they are pricing themselves out. Where to go to a convention, you have to, put up how many hundreds of dollars to afford to be able to do that. But at the same time with it, as much as we can complain about it, Michael, and say, you know what, they're pricing themselves out of it makes people happy. And it makes people want to go and do these things and spend their money because they feel like they're connected. They feel like they're part of it. And that is something that's so crucial. Now, the only way it's ever going to be solved is if people step back and say, we're not going to pay the price for this because we're not going to pay $70, $80 in autograph. But I'll tell you what, and I'll give myself as a prime example. I go, again, I'll say it, I go to basically no shows. I go to Horrorhound. That's about the only one I go to. And I go every single show because of responsibilities, as well as the pleasure I have of seeing the dysfunctional family that I've grown accustomed to when I'm not here in the bunker in Blairstown. I spent, at Monster Mania, I spent $70 on an autograph for John Cusack. Now, why did I do that after I'm saying, it's too expensive? Because when in the hell am I ever going to see or meet John Cusack outside of maybe doing the press thing? And how often is that going to be? It might be never. It might be never. So that opportunity brought me pleasure, and it was so unique to me that I felt I should spend it. And what I did, I had him sign the record top of an old hi-fi because of High Fidelity. Not even a horror thing. I had him sign for High Fidelity, and the chance to shake his hand and meet him, not even get a picture because that cost even more, but just to get the autograph and that experience meant something to me. So as high as the price is, it's never high enough because someone's willing to pay it. If we want to cut that back, we have to stand up and say we're not going to pay for it anymore. But most likely that's not going to happen, and prices are going to still go up because of Wizard Worlds and Comic-Cons and The Walking Dead and entities like that, which are going to dictate the prices and the need of wanting people to belong.
Very true. I mean, I don't disagree with you. It's definitely an interesting aspect to look at. And, you talk about, especially, you've certainly done more traveling to conventions and film festivals than I have, and people ask me this all the time, have I ever been in a situation where I got to interview someone or meet someone and was starstruck? Has that ever happened to you?
You know what? I'm going to say it's been a long time. When I first started out, just like everyone else, when I first started doing the radio program and I started to get those ins, going to conventions and covering it for press, because I am proud to say, except for a couple over the 5+ years, I have been lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to do press for so many of them. And that is something that I can't tell you how appreciative I am every single day that Horror Happens Radio and myself have really gotten that ability to be able to do that. And in the beginning, I was very starstruck by people. You can't tell me it's not cool to see Sid Haig and meet him for the first time, or Bill Moseley, or, everyone like that. You know what? Back in 2013, second year in we were doing this, the Ghost and I organized something that I've never done before. And it's funny because it's 15 years, like a week or two ago, if I'm correct. We organized a dinner with the cast of House of 1,000 Corpses minus Bill Moseley at Horrorhound with Jensen Say. And it was insane, dude, to be able to do it. And I just listened to it recently. We're going to be playing on Rock Ridge Radio this up and coming weekend, Friday, I believe, with it. But that's here or there. But it was And it's awesome every time I go to an event. And it isn't starstruck because I can't remember the last time I sat there and go, oh my God, I can't believe I met him. It's John Cusack, but it wasn't even that, because you sat there and it was a handshake and moved on and hi, how you doing? I get starstruck when I talk to people all the time. And what I mean by starstruck, Michael, is I feel honored that I'm able to talk to them and they want to talk to me. Out of all the people in the world, they could talk to me about what they're doing, and I feel respected and honored that they would take that time out. And that's the starstruck I feel. I don't feel starstruck because I met a celebrity. I feel starstruck because I'm able to talk to a filmmaker for the first time ever. They're deciding their first interview is going to be with me.
Right.
And that's what starstrucks me about it. And it's changed over the years, because in the beginning, I was like everyone else. Now, over the last few years especially, I don't get starstruck at all like that. It's those people who give me the time that I feel honored and starstruck to meet them.
No, and I definitely get that. I mean, it's, initially, like, I remember the first time I met Tyler Mane,
Right.
I was like, oh my God, and of course that ties into, and we'll get into this in a minute, that ties into being a pro wrestling fan too.
Right.
Because I remember him as a pro wrestler, so it was like, oh my God, but, it's just interesting, to look at it, especially, both you and I, we not only do podcasts, we write for magazines, we write for websites,
Right.
For you, is the process different when you write for a magazine as opposed to a website, as opposed to doing your podcast?
Yes, and that's a great question, Michael. I will say that right up front. All three are different, because with the radio show, with the podcast aspect of it, I mean, I've got as much time as I want to develop it and sit back and edit it or just play it as is. I mean, there's a lot to it, and I have a lot more freedom to talk. With a website, unless it's something absolutely specific, which I haven't run into yet, and on all the different websites that I've written for the last couple of years, it's a matter of having that freedom, because on the web, people might have short impulse and want quick content, but if you get a good interview, you go ahead and write a review, you have that freedom. But writing for Horrorhound magazine is completely different, because Horrorhound magazine interviews, one of the lessons I learned right from the beginning is you can't sit there like I like to do and develop my questions and go ahead and make it a point, to have conversations. You are having straight up interviews, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I appreciate that challenge, and I appreciate what the magazine is doing and how it's making me a better journalist to be able to do that, because I've never done that before up until working for Horrorhound over this last year. And it all started at Fantastic Fest 2 years ago, 2016, when I interviewed David Hartman, and Nathan Hanneman, contacted me, and that was my first one for Phantasm Ravager. And it was a great opportunity, and I learned so much from Nathan and Aaron and everyone with that crew about being more of a precise and very straightforward interview with questions, with the aspect of answers, how to edit, and how to be there. So it's taught me a lot on how to be more focused and controlled, and it's made me better on every single front. And all three processes are different, but all three processes have made me a better journalist. So yeah, there is a difference between the three. And one thing I will say, Michael, just like you need to learn everything you can to be the best you can, if you want to be a great debater, if people always ask me this because of the radio program, to be a great debater, you have to sit back and take a point that you completely disagree with and argue it to the hilt to win. So
Yes.
If you don't think this is good, you find a reason why to defend it. And even if you don't believe in it, defend it, because they'll make you that much more objective and that much better of a debater. Just like a journalist, you learn different styles, you get to be better.
See, and I get that, and I damn sure respect you for saying that, because I take that back to when I was on your show about what my top 5 films of the year were. And
Right.
You were absolutely stunned when I listed Jeepers Creepers 3 as one of my top 5. And and we talked about it before I came on the show, and I know that at first you were a little hesitant because, the whole Victor Salva thing is very taboo,
Right.
but once you let me explain my reason why I felt that way and let me talk about it on your show, you understood where I was coming from, and I definitely respected that as one journalist to another. You may not have agreed with me, but you let me make my point, and it was a fantastic conversation.
Yes, and Michael, if I may jump in, and this goes to what you're saying, anyone who wants to do what we do, I always get a kick out of them because they go, well, how did you get involved? What did you do? Well, I want to do that. Okay, I'll tell you what. If you want to do that, not only find things that you don't agree with and argue them out, but sit down every single day and research them and learn. And you don't sit there and watch movies every single day to learn. You learn by reading. You learn by talking to people. You learn by watching films. You have such a well-rounded opinion. And that's one thing we've lost in, especially the last couple of years, is being objective. People are no longer objective for the most part. It's either black or white. There's no gray to just about anything. And it doesn't matter what side of the fence you are on, what your beliefs are. There's a respect in just about every single topic. And whether you agree with it or not, you should at least listen to it and hear it out. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. I've had conversations with people on the radio program as well as off mic. And I sit back and I go, you know what? I appreciate what your opinion is, but we're here to talk about your project. Can we stay on topic with that? If you want to talk about it another time, we'll talk about it another time. But I always give them that opportunity in that leeway to be able to talk about it and try and build that conversation and explain it. And that's something, if you don't do that, then you're shortchanging yourself, your audience, and those people who have spent the time that they could have put other places to spend it on your show and talk to you about that your project or topic.
Definitely. Now, let's move to something that's a little bit spicier, something that, we can I don't know if you want to call it controversial, but I think it's definitely a topic that we can gloss on for a second. And, as you know, I'm a big proponent of Women in Horror Month. I'm all about equality. It shouldn't matter if you're a woman filmmaker, a man filmmaker, anything like that. But, we've had all of this controversy with, that asshat out in California by the name of Harvey Weinstein and all the crap he's done, and the list of other male people in Hollywood who have been doing these bad things. But very recently, there's been a story that's come up, and it's about Allison Mack, who was on Smallville. And as it turns out, she was using her power and her influence as an actress in the industry to bring other women into this alleged sex ring thing that's going on. And one of the things that I noticed when I brought the topic up for a podcast discussion with a group of people the other week, it was funny. I wanted to have a female perspective on the allegations against her. And I had a lot of women who I respect in the industry, and I'm not going to call any names out because I'm not trying to make fun of everyone, but, when the Harvey Weinstein thing happened, and as much as I hate to say it, right now this is fact, everything against Weinstein is still an allegation.
Right.
Nothing has been proven. I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
I don't believe you are. To the extent that I followed this, for it, as far as I know, it is out there. And real quick, before you finish your point, again, being objective is something that we've lost in this society. That's something people have to remember.
Okay, and we agree on that. Right. I feel like a lot of people have lost objectivity too. And when I did my show on Weinstein, I could give you a list of 20 female directors, actresses, and stuff who wanted to come on the show and talk about the allegations. When this Allison Mack thing happened, 90% of those same people didn't want to come on the show, and the reason they didn't want to come on the show was they said to me, these are just allegations.
Yeah.
Why the double standard?
Okay. So one of the things over the last couple of years with politics is that, Democrat, Republican, is that, Trump has been a very polarizing figure. The moment Al Franken, has allegations brought up against him, or, other Democrats have, allegations brought up against them, it's shock and awe. And whether it's the aspect of a double standard when it comes to gender, a double standard when it comes to politics, Michael, you're always going to have people who don't want to face the truth. And, it's fascinating how these female names are coming out now. And one of the things I love to say is that until it happens to you personally, those people who are so devout will never change how they feel. So, for example, I'll give a personal example.
Sure.
My mother, who has Parkinson's, who's been depressed most of her life, who has been a ward of the state, is a Democrat. She is a Democrat. And I will say that I am a moderate. I'm in the middle. I look at both sides. I'm very objective, and I try to be objective in everything in my life. There are things that Democrats do good, things that Republicans do good, things that, on a project fit women, certain projects fit men, and vice versa. So the point being is this. My mom, who is a Democrat, looked at the aspect of what Obamacare did for her. And as I explained to her facts off of what I had read about it, even a Democrat, even her, someone who has been a ward of the state for a long time, looked at me and said, well, I don't agree with that. Oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, I don't understand that. And that's the thing. Until it personally happens to you, Michael, until it affects you, people will not look at this aspect of a double standard. They won't look at the reality that, yes, there are plenty of scumbag men that are out there. But guess what? And we're starting to see now, there are their share of women who also have been guilty of these kinds of crimes. And I'm not saying that if the number one outweighs the other or one is better than the other. All I'm saying is that when you see this, you have to understand that this is something that is going to be coming out more and more and more. And for people who don't want to accept it, you know what? That's just crazy because it's out there. And you know what? It might all be allegations. But here's the problem with it. There's still proof behind the allegations. And as we're going to see going forward, there's going to be more of it out there. So it's a weird world we live in, and people are going to be like that, but people have always been like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning. And like I said, I don't ever want it to make it sound like I'm picking, but I just, it bothers me because like I said, I'll be the first one to stand in line with anybody and derail any man who treats anyone in the industry like that. But on the same token, fair is fair. And when the shoe's on the other foot, I feel like the pressure should be the same. We shouldn't gloss over it because, oh, well, she's a woman. She's not a big name star. All the excuses came out, and that part kind of bothered me.
Michael, can I throw this in? Because this is something that happened to me last year. And when you look at something like this, I don't necessarily know if it plays totally to what you're saying. I think one of the biggest issues is that people who have nothing to do with it, people who are just there trying to do their best and be empowering, are being lumped in with these men and these women. I think that is a bigger issue than the aspect of these double standards and these people popping up. And that's something that's becoming a bigger issue because, nowadays it's just looking for a target to have a target. It's looking to release a raft because there needs to be a raft released. And this is only fueling it some more. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Certainly. And like I said, I really don't want people to feel like I'm stirring the pot, but I do feel like if we feel like it's important to talk about one, then we should talk about the other as well.
Right. I agree. I agree it is. And you know what? As time goes on and people are exposed more to it and it becomes more of a personalized thing, people will talk about it, but there's always that denial at the beginning. For many people, not all people, but for many people, unfortunately.
Now, in light of all of this, we're going to get off of names, but let's talk about a generality for a second. How do you feel like this is changing the film industry? In particular, you look at horror films and the content, you don't see quite as much nudity or violence towards women, or, you're starting to see more women in the power roles. But one of the things that I've always found ironic, and it seems like people skip over this fact, is basically from the beginning of horror films, are women the victims most of the time? Yes. Are they treated badly? Yes. But at the end of the day, it's almost 99% of the time, the woman's the victor. The woman's the one standing at the end. You know,
Right.
do you feel like we're going to start to see a shift in that, where men are going to be the victims more, where men are going to be the ones standing at the end against a vicious female killer?
You know what? That is a great question. And you know what? For the longest time, and I was asked recently for an article by Stacey Lane Wilson. I believe it was for Dread Central, for National Women's Day. I believe it was. And she asked similar questions about it. You know, were there female icons in horror way back when? What would the trends be in horror if females were involved? I got to tell you something. I don't necessarily believe that the idea of gender is going to switch like that. You know, will we see more female-led stories? Possibly. But I sit back and I look at it and I look at it and the landscape doesn't necessarily show the change in storytelling. It shows the change in female directors and how they're getting more and more involved, because there are female directors out there, and yes, the percent is small, but females out there are getting more power because of this, and that is a great thing. That's a great aspect of it, and I don't believe it's going to change the story. I don't believe we're going to have more female antagonists and male protagonists or more male victims. I think horror in general is a genre that doesn't really see gender, and you know, I don't know who created the term final girl, but I hate the term final girl. I hate the term final girl. Because I look at it and it's such a stereotype with it. You know, that aspect really put women back when it came to the aspect of the idea of character in horror. And what I see is not the aspect of switching gender. I see the aspect of stronger female characters, whether protagonists or antagonists. Not ones that are looking to victimize people, but ones who are looking for empowering roles, ones who are looking to be strong characters no matter what side of the coin they might be on. And that starts with the writing, that starts with the producing, that starts with the aspect of directing. And that's something that I'm hoping we see more and more and more of. And with the way things are going, I believe it will, especially in the next decade, we will see those kind of visions where, again, it will not be one or the other, but it will just be strong characters and strong stories led by more and more female directors, writers, and more.
No, and I think that's a fascinating aspect. I remember I was reading, I don't know if it was this month's or the previous issue of Rue Morgue, and they talked about we're starting to see more women kind of in the revenge rape kind of thing, and it's where the role is switched now, where the man is the victim. And you know, I just found it interesting because I feel like it's a topic that a lot of people aren't discussing, and to me it wouldn't matter one way or the other. A good horror film is a good horror film. I don't care who directs it, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, you know.
Right, but let me say this though, because Michael, when you look at the aspect of gender and you look at the aspect of rape revenge, if anything, in my opinion, and you know, keep in mind, it's my opinion, and people agree with it, people don't agree with it. Some people are blind and they're not going to agree with whatever you say if it's not exactly what they think. With that being said, especially rape revenge, that is the worst example of women empowerment film, because, again, that is the platform that many women feel that gender, their gender, has been repressed on. Rape revenge, well, the woman's been brutalized, the woman's been tortured, she's taken out. What happened to empowering characters and empowering stories? Tigers Are Not Afraid by Issa Lopez is a great example of that, where you had an incredibly young and powerful female character in there who was able to hold her own at such a young age. Bloodlight is a hybrid style horror film, crazy Pulp Fiction style horror film, where you have an incredibly powerful character in Nikki Michelle, who plays the lead in that film. You know, why take the aspect of rape revenge and make that your flag bearer of what it's going to be when you have so many more rich stories with incredibly powerful characters, female characters, that we haven't seen in decades? Why not empower the positive instead of powering where the negatives are coming out of? And a great example is Revenge. I just saw it at the Chattanooga Film Festival, and I listen to all the things that people say, but the truth of the matter is the film really does not diverge much from the aspect of what we've seen for decades with Rape Revenge. and it really plays so heavily to just making a character shine instead of building that character. And that's what we need more. We need more of these more of these filmmakers, whether female or male, that are going to create these empowering female characters that are going to be positive for the horror genre, not ones that are surface level that we've seen so long before, where it's just a motivation and no substance for the most part. And that's something that some people might not want to hear. But talking to as many people as I've had, watching as many films as I've had, being around as many people as I have, it's needed more than just a quick fix. It needs a solution that's going to last.
No, and I agree with you 100%. And I hate it because this hour has just flown by. I mean, you and I could probably talk for another 4 hours, but,
yes, we could.
kind of, before I let you go, tell people what you have coming up. Are you going to be at any conventions? Or are you going to be at any film festivals? What do you have going on that people need to know about?
Well, I'm going to say that the end of April, I will be up at Shockstock on Friday for the screening of my short film, Don't Eat It, Dave. It's a 60-second micro short that got picked up by Tony Newton for the 60 Seconds to Die Part 3 compilation of micro shorts, which is always great. It was a lot of fun to make with David Sand and Liz Sand and my dad and all that. And it's going to play at Shockstock, and then it's going to play at the Salt City Horror Fest next day, April 28th, in Syracuse, New York, at the Palace Theater. So I'll be out there for a couple. I'll be at Tribeca this up and coming week for a lot of the midnight programming, horror programming. So there's a lot of stuff I'm out to. But, come July all the way through until probably December, I'll be pretty much out there just about every weekend at so many different film festivals. Go to horrorhappens.com or find us on Facebook, and you'll see where we're going to be. So it's, that's where I would say to look. But there's a lot of places that are coming up, and hopefully we'll see people out there and have that discussion and, be able to get out there and talk about your work out there if you're listening right now or if you've got, work coming out.
Definitely. And of course, for my listeners, definitely go over and check out, the Horror Happens radio show, man. Make sure to go to horrorhappens.com, read up on Jay and everything that he's doing. And, on top of that, tell people where they can find you, social media, Facebook, Twitter, anything like that.
Absolutely. Again, horrorhappens.com is the prime place. But you can find me facebook.com/horrorhappensarrest. Also at Horror Happens Arrest, and that JK Horror on Twitter as well. And you can find there also SoundCloud under the Horror Happens Radio for all the archive stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there, folks, a lot of listening. And again, we appreciate any time you're willing to spend supporting, sharing everything when it comes to Horror Happens Radio.
Well, Jay, again, I want to thank you so much for being on. I felt like this was a very informative discussion. I've always felt like all of us in the industry, no matter what we do, acting, directing, producing, effects, writing, podcasting, we need to support one another. We are a big and happy family, and I am more than happy to send my audience over your way. So, again, thank you for being on. Thank you for such an informative discussion. I really feel like everyone learned a lot tonight, and, I'm really look forward to having you on again in the future.
Well, thank you very much for the objective conversation. And again, that's what we need more in horror, kind of objective conversations where we learn, we respect each other's opinions. And Michael, same thing with Horror Happens, sending the audience over there and listening to what you guys are doing every single episode, which is remarkable. And we appreciate you being another beacon out there and getting the good word out of the dark corners of horror. And as always, making sure that you listen live.
Definitely, and I would be remiss if I let you go before I asked you. Did you enjoy WrestleMania 34? The best thing for me was watching The Undertaker squash John Cena. That made my night.
Oh wow! Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you know what? I did enjoy WrestleMania, and I've had my share of WrestleManias I've been at, and I've really enjoyed the fact of what they did with this year. I'm the first one to admit that, certain aspects of WrestleMania I kind of wish were changed. I didn't like the squash match as much as you did because I was hoping for something competitive with two legends like that in the industry. But, I was kind of disappointed in that. Nonetheless, I will say this about John Cena, and I loved him, I saved him, I always respect him. back at WrestleMania 23, so many years ago now, I sat there with Taz and Joey Styles in Detroit, Michigan, at a burger place, waiting for them, because at that time, SmackDown was taking Tuesdays. And Taz, I will never forget what he said to me. He goes, no matter whether you love, you hate John Cena, you got to respect him because of all the things he's done. And I'll tell you so, because just like The Miz, John Cena and The Miz will be missed so much when they decide to walk away, because there will never be any figures like them that are coming through the ranks. So you know what? I love what they're able to do, and very happy with the WrestleMania. And it's going to be a good year with the shakeup coming around the bend tomorrow. This past Monday and Tuesday.
That's true. And, just two other things. You talked about two legends. Don't forget that Taker and Chris Jericho are going to have a casket match in Saudi Arabia. And I don't know if you saw this, but the news broke while I was talking with you tonight. John Cena and Nikki Bella have ended their 6-year relationship.
Wow.
So a little bit of history when I have you on my show. How about that?
A little bit of history. I guess all the contract requirements and negotiation points finally failed for Nikki Bella and John Cena, because I got to be honest with you, it felt more and more like this was just a storyline until Divas than anything else with it. So it's not surprising, but at the same time, it is kind of surprising. And you know what? The world goes on, and so will they.
Well, again, man, thank you so much, and I look forward to having you on soon, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate it. I know the other horror fans out here appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much. Same with you. I will be talking with you soon on the show, no doubt, and thank you for the time tonight, Michael. I appreciate it so much for being here on the calling hours.
You know it, brother, anytime.
Have a good night, man.
And once again, I would like to say thank you to JK of the Horror Happens radio show for coming on and having such a wonderful conversation with me. Make sure to head on over and check out this man's podcast if you haven't had an opportunity. I like to think that I go in depth on my shows, but Jay really, really goes above and beyond the call of duty, and he is definitely, definitely worthy of your attention. Coming up in just a few moments, we're going to go into our final Digital Dismemberment Spotlight for the evening, where we will be covering Scarred from Origin Releasings and Fright Tek Pictures. Great film. But before that, we're going to go into our final Metal Massacre Spotlight. The name of the band is Cradle of Filth. The CD is Lovecraft and Witch Hearts, and the song is Hallowed Be Thy Name.
I'm waiting.
welcome back. You just heard the band Cradle of Filth. The CD was Lovecraft and Witch Hearts, and the song was Hallowed Be Thy Name. Of course, Cradle of Filth is an English extreme metal band formed in Suffolk, England in 1991. The band's musical style evolved originally from black metal to a cleaner and more produced amalgamation of gothic metal, symphonic metal, and other metal genres. If you want to find out more about this band, where they're touring, how to pick up their merchandise and CDs, make sure to head on over to cradleoffilth.com. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our final digital dismemberment. And in our final digital dismemberment spotlight this evening, we are covering Fright Tek Pictures and Origin Releasing's release of Scarred. Now, this film is directed by Eddie Langell, produced by Don Kilrain and Janine Sarnowski. Special effects were handled by Daniel Blaine Click, Raven Lunatic, and Greg Lanning. The cast includes Ari Lehman, Don Kilrain, Lisa Neild, Carl Ferreira, Tina Grimm, Alex Russo, Molly Miller, Jessica Lauschen, Max Alinsky, Janine Sarnowski, Haley Kaczynski, Devin Steiner, Justine Greenwald, Robbie Barnes, Bart Flynn, Chris Leader, Lloyd Wema, Julie Ann, Benny Benzino, and Barbie Marie. Of course, this film was released by Fright Tek Pictures, Origin Releasings, and it was released September 29th of 2015 and was available in Walmarts starting on May 3rd of 2016. Now, to give you the premise of the film, when a group of models, their bodyguard, and a novice photographer head out to a remote rural location for an edgy photo shoot, they soon find themselves confronted by a couple of locals that try to warn the group of the legend that is Jonah Candy. The locals fail to persuade them to heed their warning and not to fall prey to the grotesque, disfigured Jonah that was maimed at the hands of his psychotic father. Jonah, who has a hatred for beauty, wreaks havoc with his special brand of vengeance using hammers, chainsaws, and other assorted flesh-ripping devices as punishment for entering Camp Candyland. Now, there is a tried-and-true format when it comes to the slasher film. A simplicity and love that does not require overhandling of the subject or too much coddling that withers the pace or characters. Very much to his credit, director-writer Eddie Langell, whose other films include 2010's Hell Week and 2011's Voodoo Rising, stays true to these premises and delivers a film that not only harkens back to the heydays of the 80s slasher genre, but also gives us a sharp insight into what a talented and determined cast and crew can do when given good material to work with. With obvious nods to genre favorites of the past, including films such as Friday the 13th and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Eddie manages to blend a story and the characters that hit every benchmark, from beautiful actresses, remote locations, and as a footnote, fantastic job to actress, producer, and location scout Janine Sarnowski, by the way. Creepy town legends, graphic and gruesome kills, creepy little kids, and sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But just as important in all of this, a true slasher film is nothing without its killer. In that role, actor-producer Don Kilrain is the man behind the fury and the mask of Jonah Candy, the town legend that was brutally abused as a boy that had his face slashed with a straight razor by his father before he kills his wife and himself with a shotgun. Very large and menacing, Don portrays the character well, his presence dominating the screen whenever he appears. Made with a budget of around $10,000, Eddie and crew make the film look 10 times more expensive, giving a polished look and a great soundtrack. Now, the film was made in Medina, Ohio. Now, there is much to like here. While the plot is simplistic and to the point, it belts along at a fantastic pace, and it never seems to drag or go into too much of a deep narrative. The character development is right where it needs to be, and the actors and actresses hit their marks perfectly. In particular, the interactions between Jonah and Tiny have a particular brother-sister feel to them, creating a level of intensity and dread that will have you biting your lip. The character interactions between the models and crew is also spot on, with dialogue not seeming forced or read. The camera and sound work make it hard to believe that this was only a $10,000 budgeted film, far surpassing what you see from most micro-budget slasher films these days. The difficulties in filming on location outdoors can be quite immense, but great care seems to be taken with the audio, both in spoken scenes and general ambient shots. The color and lighting are quite exceptional, as well as you lose nothing to excessive darkness or vastness of space. The homages to Friday the 13th and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are well received, and the special effects work brings a gritty sense of realism that even the most hardcore of gore fans will enjoy. With very little in the way of digital work, the scenes really relied on a technical proficiency from the effects artists and the actors. In particular, the chainsaw sequence is quite impressive and will have you hitting the rewind button several times. The film is a perfect example of what talent, hard work, and dedication can do for a film with a micro budget. The passion is obvious throughout the film, and new filmmakers can learn a lot by observing how Eddie and his cast and crew took a well-worn and loved genre idea and put a refreshing spin on an old idea. If you're going into this film looking for a massive nudity and CGI, you might as well keep walking. However, if you're looking for an easy-to-watch slasher film that hits all of the notes without dumbing down your IQ, then Scarred is for you. I hope to see a sequel to this very soon. Now, as far as special features go, there are 6 deleted alternate scenes on this. There is a music video for the song Screams to a Whisper performed by the band Impending Lies. There's a photo gallery, the Scarred trailer, and there are origin releasing trailers for Crystal Skulls, Treachery, Firequake, and Viking Quest. Now, Origin Releasing does a fantastic job with this release. In a day and age where many indie horror films are released without any special content, they managed to give us several alternate deleted scenes as well as a music video that is actually worth watching. The inclusion of the photo gallery was nice as well and provides a nice look at what went on during the production. The only things that you could have asked for would have been a commentary with director Eddie Lengal and producer-actor Don Kilrain, and possibly some interviews with some of the cast and crew, but that is really a minor detail that can be overlooked. This is an excellent release, and I look forward to more films like this. Overall, I give the movie a 4 out of 5. I give the DVD a 7 out of 10. So make sure to pick up your copy of Scarred as soon as you get a chance, because I think this will be a film that will be remembered many years from now, quite possibly as a cult classic. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, I think we had a fantastic show this evening. I want to say thank you again to my guest, podcaster JK, of course, from the Horror Happens radio show. Fantastic discussion. I definitely look forward to talking to Jay again. I want to say thank you to Fright Tek Pictures and Origin Releasings for the copy of Scarred for review, as well as to Screen Factory for allowing us a copy of Scanners 2, The New Order, and Scanners 3, The Takeover. That is the Blu-ray and DVD combo pack for review. I also want to say thank you to the bands Vital Remains, Necrogoblicon, and Cradle of Filth for the fantastic music they gave us this evening. Don't forget that on Friday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Mile High Radio, the Calling Hours Horror Podcast is syndicated both in North America and worldwide. So make sure that if you can't catch the show on Tuesday nights, you're going to milehighradio.com on Friday nights to check out the Calling Hours Horror Podcast. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, this is your host, the dead man, Michael Jones of MorbidlyBeautiful.com, Coffin Cuties magazine, and Digital Dead magazine, telling you all to rest in peace.